All right, in this reaction video, this is Matthew McConaughey, tips on acting. So we'll see what he has to say and we'll break that down and talk about it, see how that might apply to you as an actor. Good advice, bad advice, we shall see. If nothing else, we know he is a phenomenal actor. Here we go.
You know, with scripts, the question that I get asked most often, and I think most actors get asked most often, is, how do you remember all those lines? And I'm always like, well, you don't try to remember all the lines. You look at what's on the text. First, you read it and you try to understand it. You read it again. Me, I read it after a run when my endorphins are flying. I read it late Saturday night when I've got a good buzz going. I read it when I'm feeling right after church, when I'm feeling in a very forgiving mood. I'll read it when I'm mad, sad, glad, tired, happy, excited. In many different places where I am personally, I'll read a script, and that means I'll have a different look at the same scenes because I'm in a different place. And I gather all that for weeks, if not months, before I start really locking into making decisions on what my character would or wouldn't do, on truths of my man, as I call it. And you have to watch in a script, not...
I'm gonna pause it there real quick. Let's talk about what he has already said. He said he most often gets asked, like, how do you memorize all those lines? Of course, that's all acting is, right? You just memorize words and you say them at a certain time and story is gonna come through. It reminds me of one thing that I talk to my actors about all the time. They say 7% of communication are the words that you say. 7%. The rest comes from, tone and body language. So really, your tone and your body language is communicating much more story than the lines of dialogue themselves. And for some reason, the new actor tends to think and put all of their priority on the memorization and getting those words out, at the right time. And it's completely backwards. So when I hear Matthew talking about that, that's what stirs up in my mind. Yeah, it's not really about the words. It's about everything else. And then you said he would read through it a bunch of times in different moods and different angles so that he might have a different lens as though to see it before making any choices, which I think is interesting. I think as an actor sometimes you want to immediately put yourself in there and think, how would I do it if I were in this situation? And I like how Matthew's kind of taking the time to go, I'm just going to sit back for a second. I'm just going to read through it. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to read through it. I'm going to read through it and see what comes at me and what makes sense before I start making any choices to craft something. I actually want to rewind because I want to go to the part. He said something really interesting at the end. I need to replay it here. Wait, before we get into that, I have something very important to tell you. If you were an actor and you've been struggling to get auditions, then you're gonna wanna hear this. I have actors tell me this all the time. They're on Actors Access, Casting Network, backstage, and they submit all the time for work every single day, and yet get little to no audition notifications. Now, the problem has nothing to do with your acting, and it has everything to do with your branding and marketing. If you haven't figured out your brand characters yet, then you've been struggling for no reason. I don't want you guys to struggle. I want you guys to be successful. So to do that, I'm giving you guys the Studio 24 Actor Branding Starter Kit for free. This is where you are gonna be able to discover your brand and effectively market yourself as a professional actor. It means you can start turning those submissions into auditions overnight. You guys, this is so important. I want you guys to pause this video and go grab that right now. Let's get back to the video.
Would or wouldn't do, on truths of my man, as I call it.
On what I would or wouldn't do on truths for my man, as I call it. So when he's coming up with a character, there are truths that he has to establish for them. That means he is creating something and making choices where a character must have structural integrity to them. And this is where an actor can't just memorize their lines and say it, because it might be here, it might be here, it might be all over the place, and it could come out any which way for any reason, but there's no truth behind it, which means that there's no integrity to that character. This is so important. I hope you guys hear this. If you're an actor, you must establish some truths, some structural integrity for the work that you were about to do. This would go for, let's say that you were just playing a vampire, for example. As far as I know, they don't exist. But there are some truths that are set for a vampire. There are some limitations. There are some flaws that they have. And if we aren't adhering to those truths for that character, then you're never going to be able to play that truthfully, and then it could be all over the place. And just imagine if nobody had these truths set around them, how blurry everything would get. No, there's something and there's some structure needed to be able to play a character and to have them be placed in environments where there is integrity, there's a through line, there's conviction, there's some truth set up for that character. And through those truths, they can now navigate that story. Okay, hope that made sense. It's a little complicated, but if you guys are in acting and you're in characters, hopefully that's clicking to you. It's really important.
And you have to watch in a script not to grab a hold of things that you want to take literally too early, because you don't want to get bound to anything. You want to stay loose. Well, over and over through repetition, you know the script. You know what it's about. It's not about knowing the lines. What's the scene about? What does the character want out of this scene? What's the obstacle in front of this character to get what he wants?
Okay, so now we're actually getting into acting technique. So he's talking about wants and obstacles. Other instructors might say, what are your objectives? But this is the structure that an actor has to have in order to be able to live in those choices that they make. But he's saying that we have to understand all of that first. He also said we don't want to get too attached, to something, because once you do, then, you stop thinking. It ruins your ability to take direction from another actor, and it gets you locked into a specific choice, which can actually take you away from having chemistry in the scene with your co-star. So there's got to be an element that is unpredictable, that is organic, that's alive in the moment, but we still need structure placed around that to be able to do that work and have some type of through line. You got to make objective choices for the sake of story, that character in that story, in that particular scene. So when he's talking about a want, that character, like what's driving this character through here? What are they trying to get out of the other character? What are the things that are standing in the way of them getting that? Until we have these things answered, you don't understand the scene yet. And then again, if we start the scene and they say their lines, I say mine, they say theirs, we'll get to the end of the scene, but with no story coming through, no drama, no struggle. So actors make these choices so that they can get invested into this. They understand it, they make choices, and then they can go in there and play those things.
What does a character need in the scene? And then overall, what's happening in the scene? So if you do it over and over, it's never about memorizing the lines. It's understanding what the hell you're saying and what you mean and what you're trying to get and what you need, why you're having trouble getting it, how are you going to get past that obstacle to get what you need. That you do that enough, the lines on the day are like Elie Kazan says, they're fringe on the carpet. I mean, they're just words, and that's the difference from writing and acting. The actor brings a bloodline to the role. It's as much about what we don't say as what we do. If I can pull off a paragraph, the meaning of a paragraph, with one look, go with a look.
Did you guys hear that? He said if you can take a whole paragraph and instead of having all that dialogue, be able to give what that is with a single look, do the look. I can't. That is so important. Here's what new actors do, or when we're putting together, demo reels for actors, which are important. They're little showcase tools, and you give them, a one-page script. They're always like, "Where's the rest of it?" They want more words, or can my character have more dialogue? That's a new actor thing. An experienced actor is like, give me less dialogue. That's the difference between a new actor and an experienced actor. They don't want more words. They're going to create story where there isn't. Silence is going to speak volumes. So you don't want more stuff to say, you want less. You know why? Because your acting is going to be able to shine. Because your thoughts and the context and the struggle and everything that makes an actor good is going to come to the surface. Dialogue is just fluff. It's a distraction. That is so powerful, what Matthew just said, and I hope that you guys see why that is so important. You do not want more to say, you want less to say. And if you are a great actor, you will thrive on that.
Not the words. And so I always say it's not about memorizing the lines. You don't think about memorizing the lines at all. I write a lot. I break down the scripts and scenes. Most of my scenes, I'll have a version that's 8 times longer than the scene because I've rewritten it so many times in so many ways. I may not say anything that I rewrote, but everything I wrote tells me more, informs me more on what was on the page.
Boom. There's so much more. You know, when you get a script, when you have a scene, yeah, it's like there's a track that's laid out, but these characters live beyond that track. And I think the actor's job is to know where that could go. You should be able to improvise your entire scene, start to finish, without that track that the writers have laid. Yes, that's important, and yes, you will adhere to that. But as an actor, if you know that character intimately and you know that story, can't you use in your own words to navigate a different way that could go? Left or right, up, down, anywhere, because you know all of that? Where if you go, would your character say that? You go, no, they wouldn't say that. Would they do this? Yeah, they would do that. If you're like, then you don't know your character well enough. You don't know their truths. You don't know how they navigate this world and how they hear things and, and how their mind works. If you don't know your character that intimately and that well, man, you're just faking it. You're just performing. You're just taking a guess where your character doesn't have structural integrity. There is no truth behind them. You don't understand the scene, or you're not understanding the dynamic or the story, and you're just going, oh, I should say this angry, and I'm going to come up with a certain line delivery that's going to make it sound that way. Can you see how surfacey that performance would be? You're just going to say lines a certain way. That's not the depth and detail needed to have a performance worthy of TV and film at the highest level. When you guys are approaching your work, I hope we're thinking about these things. Or maybe we're not. That's okay. Everybody starts somewhere. But I hope we start thinking about these things. You know, when you hear directors talking about a project, the way they talk about it, I would encourage you guys to watch all the behind the scenes stuff on any movie, any TV show, the breakdown of it that they do, and listen to how the creators, the showrunners, the writers, the directors, the lead actors, how they talk about it. How they talk about the words and the meaning and the symbolism and the importance of this single moment that we've been waiting all season for this thing, and how they want to craft it. And when you think that's who I want to be working with, then we got to think what's going to get us there. It's this kind of talk, it's this kind of detail, it's this kind of specificity behind a performance that will get you there. So if you're not thinking like this now, it's time to start. It's time to start. I think these are great tips that Matthew McConaughey has here. And I hope that you guys have a takeaway from this that's going to help you on your next performance. All right, I will see you guys on the next one.